Following up on the Opioid Crisis Response Act of 2018. A presentation by Paul Brackey, author, publisher. American Leadership Books. Author of 9 books on social, political, and criminal justice issues. The Opioid Crisis Response Act of 2018 (OCRA) was a major breakthrough. It was passed by both Democrats and Republicans because they recognized the severity of the crisis. This passage occurred despite their continued partisan behavior, which interfered with the passage of most other legislation. First, we have to review the legislation already passed. Next, we need to take further steps to implement its provisions. We also have to pass supplemental legislation to further the aims of this act. That's what I'll be talking about in this presentation. The provisions of the act include the following. Reauthorize $500 million in funding each year to combat opioid use disorder. Provide for further access to treatment and recovery services for addicts. Give the National Institute of Health the authority to more quickly authorize research on alternative pain therapies instead of opioids. Another benefit of the act is that it will help to reduce homelessness, another growing crisis in cities around America. To this end, the bill recognizes the importance of stable housing as a critical part of treatment and recovery. While this act can help to ameliorate the housing and homeless crisis, any assistance to resolve this should go beyond just helping addicts. OCRA by itself isn't enough to be the complete solution to the opioid epidemic, since government aid shouldn't give preference to homeless drug users over the rest of the homeless. Funding should be expanded to help all of the homeless with housing. While this legislation can pave the way to help end the housing crisis in many cities, all of the homeless should be taken off the streets, so they no longer are an eyesore and embarrassment there. The big issue now being debated in many cities is how to actually implement the act. A key consideration is how the homeless crisis in many cities intersects with the opioid crisis, since at least half of the homeless have a drug problem. Thus, any steps to implement the act need to deal with both the opioid and homeless crisis. Here are my recommendations for helping addicts who are homeless. The homeless shouldn't just get free housing, the recipients of aid should have to work for it, too. An additional act should provide services to help all homeless people get off the streets. Part of the act should include a work for services provision, so this doesn't become a free ride for the homeless. If housing aid is given to addicts, it should be terminated after a year if they continue to use or haven't found a job. It's not fair to give homeless addicts preferential housing assistance not available to the rest of the homeless. While this act may seem like a policy to delight liberals, conservatives will find much to like. Conservatives will like this act, since homelessness negatively impacts local businesses and a city's economy as a whole. Here's how. People who are homeless and have a drug problem contribute to the general deterioration of a neighborhood by shooting up and leaving needles on the street. Many addicts end up in jail or prison for selling drugs to support their habit, and incarceration is expensive. Thus, helping the homeless through this act is not only a more humane approach to dealing with the opioid crisis, but it makes perfect economic sense to do so. The result is a cleaner city, a stronger retail community, and more sales to tourists. Still, another benefit of the Act is that it authorizes community block grants through 2023. These grants are designed to provide funds for temporary housing for up to 2 years for a group of homeless people with opioid use disorder who are in treatment. This pilot program is designed to help states with the highest rates of drug overdose deaths combined with other factors, such as having a high rate of unemployment. Thus, this act both helps the homeless with a drug problem and the local economy where joblessness is high. There is a close connection between these two problems, in that helping the homeless overcome their drug problem and find housing can help them find jobs. In order to review the legislation already passed, we should do the following. Step up an independent review commission made up of doctors, researchers, and government officials involved with health issues, such as the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Include the participation of an equal number of members of Congress from both parties, who are interested in health issues. Then, to implement its provisions, the Commission needs to develop a step-by-step plan of action, along with a budget indicating what needs to be done. In sum, the act is designed to achieve the goals of getting the homeless with a drug problem off the streets and into housing in various ways. Previous books and chapters on the opioid crisis in the U.S. Dealing with crime by illegal immigrants and the opioid crisis. Chapters in Crime in America. Uncertain Justice. For more information, American Leadership Books. Little Rock, Arkansas. www.americanleadershipbooks.com. Info@americanleadershipbooks.com